This is the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. I am Manoj Mainkar, and in the next half hour, I'll bring to you news updates from India and around the world, awareness videos on coronavirus by Government of India, and a lot more. We'll begin with the news updates.
This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. Namaskar. The news snippets. 24,04,585 people have recovered from COVID-19 in the country. In the last 24 hours, 66,550 recoveries were reported. India's recovery rate is 75.27%. 9,25,383 tests were conducted for COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. Total tests have crossed 3.63 crore. The PM CARES Fund will finance 2 hospitals in Bihar. Each of the hospitals will have 500 beds. They will primarily be COVID hospitals. Doctors and paramedical staff would be provided by the Armed Forces Medical Services. 2 persons died and more than 15 are feared trapped after a 5-story building collapsed in Mahad town of Raigad district, Maharashtra, due to heavy rainfall. NDRF is involved in rescue operations. Minister for Road Transport and Highways, Nitin Gadkari, inaugurated 35 road projects worth 9,400 crore rupees in Madhya Pradesh virtually. The State Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan and Union Cabinet Ministers Narendra Singh Tomar and Thawar Chand Gehlot were present during the virtual launch. Unlock 4 is set to begin from 1st September. The centre and state authorities are holding consultations on the way forward. Economic activities are expected to be further eased in Unlock 4. The National Investigation Agency, NIA, would be submitting the charge sheet to the designated court on the Pulwama attack of February 2019. 40 CRPF personnel were killed in the terrorist attack masterminded by the Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist group. Protests are continuing against the alleged electoral malpractice in Belarus. The European Council has called for an emergency meeting on the situation in Belarus. Mali's deposed president is set to be released from detention. A delegation of African leaders met the Malian military officers who led the coup and requested the release of the deposed president. Bayern Munich won the European Cup football title. They defeated Paris Saint-Germain 1-0 in the finals at Lisbon. The winning goal of the Champions League grand finale was scored by Kingsley Coman of Bayern. And that is the end of the news snippets. This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We now bring you a special film-based program from our archives.
Our cinema is replete with stories of how great directors, actors, singers defied constant adversity to chart out their own course. Names like Mehboob and Meena Kumari come to one's mind immediately. The former rose from being an unemployed, unlettered youth to be among the best directors ever, giving us films like Aurat and Mother India. The latter had to work as a child actor to sustain her family and went on to be the tragedy queen of Hindi cinema. One man, though the common man is at times guilty of forgetting, is L.V. Prasad. In fact, so unpardonable is this ignorance of the new generation of cinegoers that a few years ago, when Mithun Chakravarti and noted Telugu Hindi director T.L.V. Prasad joined hands to give us a series of potboilers like Jallad, Kalia, Jodidar and Sikandar Sadakka, etc., many could not make out that T.L.V. Prasad was not the same as L.V. Prasad, the legendary Dada Sai Phalke Award winner. L.V. Prasad had humble, Really humble beginnings. He worked as a cleaner at a tailor's shop to begin with. As a consequence, when he got a chance to promote upcoming exhibitions in the city, it seemed quite an achievement for him. Still, he was well off the film firmament. Things changed, however, when he joined India Picture Company. This was to open a little window to films for Prasad. This was also the time when he had to forego his original name, the rather longish Akinneni Lakshmi Varaprasad Rao, to an easier to pronounce L.V. Prasad. Blessed with a shortened name by a clerk who found it too tedious to write his full name, L.V. Prasad was soon to land a bit role in a silent film called Star of the East. Then came a film that made him an inseparable part of the annals of Indian cinema. Prasad got a small role in Ardeshir Irani's Alam Ara, India's first talkie. Incidentally, he shot his bit part for the film at night only. It was done to keep the shooting of the film absolutely a secret affair, as there were as many as 23 other films which were vying to be the first talkie. Alam Ara changed the way people watched films. It also changed the way Prasad approached cinema. Prasad then notched up a little piece of history all his own. After Alamara, he acted in the first Tamil talkie, Kalidas, and followed it up by acting in the first Telugu talkie, Bhakt Prahlad. When Alamara opened on 14th March 1931, it was soon to be followed by Kalidas in October the same year, followed again in turn by Bhakt Prahlad. Though not a well-known name, still, the three films in quick succession, each a part of the annals of our cinema, set the tone for the career of L.V. Prasad, who was to go on to become a director, actor, cinematographer, and producer of films of note. In fact, the man who was at one time not allowed entry into the film studios when he came to Bombay as a callow youngster from an agricultural family was to go on to chair the jury for National Film Awards as well as head the panel for choosing films for the Indian Panorama section of the International Film Festival of India in 1980 and 81 respectively. The journey from the Star of the East to Dada Sai Phalke Award was dotted with many challenging moments. One of the early challenges for Prasad came wrapped as an opportunity. A few years after doing cameos in early talkies, Prasad became an assistant director to H.M. Reddy in Madras. This shift from Bombay to Madras in 1940 was to prove fruitful in the years to come, though initially Prasad looked for and got work in Bombay, including working for the famous Prithvi theatres. Reddy, however, did not limit Prasad's foray to just a stint as an assistant director. He went on to cast him as a hero for films like Satyam Jayam and Tenali Ramakrishna. However, Prasad had never been known to be the favorite child of destiny. Just when his career was really taking off came the Second World War, gravely impacting the finances available for movies across the world. It also became difficult to import raw material for shooting. However, the cloud too came with a silver lining for Prasad. Around this time, T. Gopichand's Graha Pravesham was being made by K.S. Prakash Rao. Prasad was initially taken as an assistant to Gopichand, who himself was hemming the film. Gopichand, however, opted out of the responsibility before the shooting commenced, and Prasad was asked to be the director. The producers earlier had failed to find a suitable hero, and Prasad was offered the role. He thus ended up becoming both the director and the hero. The film was released to great critical acclaim a little before India got independence. It was also to pave the path for future association of Prasad with Tamil and Telugu cinema. Again, however, the opportunity did not come about without a hitch. During the making of Graha Pravesham, Rama Brahmam called upon Prasad and asked him to handle his pet project Palnati Yudham. But this offer came only after Rama Brahmam had taken ill. Prasad completed the movie, which increased his credentials as a director. Soon he was to introduce the legendary N.T. Rama Rao with Manadesam. Rao, though, only had a small role in the 1949 film. A year later, he directed N.T. Rama Rao and Akineni Nageshwar Rao in the super-hit Samsaram. The film established Prasad as a guy specializing in family drama. It was an image he could only break with Hindi film Miss Mary that starred, ironically, Meena Kumari in a rare comic role. Just before Miss Mary, Prasad turned a producer and also took under his wing an unfinished studio. In 1956, he produced his first Telugu film Illa Velpu, and a year later came Miss Mary, which again opened the doors to Hindi cinema and turned Prasad into a multilingual filmmaker who made films in 4 different languages, notably Hindi, Telugu, Tamil, and Kannada. Though Prasad delivered comedies too with great distinction, his forte undoubtedly lay in family dramas, tearjerkers. Even in Hindi cinema, he gave us films like Beti Bete, which talked of gender inequality without a sermon, and Milan, that was a soft and soothing emotional saga. It also had the unforgettable Lata Mangeshkar Mukesh song Sawan Ka Mahina Pavan Kare Shor. The best though was Khilona, where Sanjeev Kumar gave the performance of a lifetime. The film used glamour doll Mumtaz in a rare performance-oriented role, and its music left a mark too, with Muhammad Rafi's title song as well as Khush Rahe Tu Sada sung to this day. Much later, Prasad introduced Kamala Hassan to Hindi-speaking audiences with a romantic musical Ek Duje Ke Liye opposite Rati Agnihotri. Having tasted great success as a director and producer and notched up notable films as an actor in a variety of roles, Prasad was to go on to build more studios in Hyderabad and even branched out to philanthropy with eye institutes where the poor were given complimentary eye care. He breathed his last a little under 20 years ago in June 1994. The Government of India honored him with a postal stamp in 2006. Today, as we are faced with quick fix filmmakers who claim to notch up ₹100 crores in the first weekend, it would be worthwhile to remember the deeds of the one and only L.V. Prasad, the man who came as an ordinary boy to Bombay with nothing but dreams in his eyes and even shortened his name for easy recall. He was a genius.
You were listening to a special film-based program from our archives. This program came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
In December 2019, there was a cluster of pneumonia cases in the city of Wuhan in China. Some of the early cases had reported visiting or working in a seafood and live animal market in Wuhan. Investigations found that the disease was caused by a newly discovered coronavirus. The disease was subsequently named COVID-19. COVID-19 spread within China and to the rest of the world. On 30 January 2020, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. In this video, we'll take a quick look at what is currently known about COVID-19. Keep in mind that this is a new disease, and what's known is rapidly evolving and might change in the future. So what is a coronavirus? Coronaviruses are a large group of viruses. They consist of a core of genetic material surrounded by a lipid envelope with protein spikes. This gives it the appearance of a crown. Crown in Latin is called corona, and that's how these viruses get their name. There are different types of coronaviruses that cause illness in animals and humans. In humans, coronaviruses can cause respiratory infections ranging from the common cold to more severe diseases. These include the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, first identified in China in 2003, the Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus that was first identified in Saudi Arabia in 2012, and SARS-CoV-2, the name of the virus that causes COVID-19 that was first reported in December 2019. So, where did this new virus come from? It's known that coronaviruses circulate in a range of animals. Sometimes these viruses can make the jump from animals to humans. This is called a spillover and could be due to a range of factors, such as mutations in the virus or increased contact between humans and animals. For example, MERS-CoV is known to be transmitted from camels, and SARS-CoV from civet cats. The animal reservoir of the new coronavirus is not known yet. How does the disease spread? The disease can spread from person to person through droplets, when an infected person releases those droplets through coughing, talking, or sneezing, for example, when close to another person. It can also spread when infected droplets land on objects, and when another person touches them and then touches their eyes, nose, or mouth. What are the symptoms? The incubation period, which is the time taken from exposure to the virus and development of symptoms, is on average 5 to 6 days, but can range from 1 to 14 days. There can be a range of symptoms, from very mild to severe. Some people may not develop symptoms. Common symptoms include fever, fatigue, and respiratory symptoms such as cough, sore throat, and shortness of breath. Some people reported loss of their sense of taste or smell, and some may develop a skin rash. In more severe cases, there could be pneumonia, organ failure, and sometimes death. About 80% of cases recover from the disease without needing special treatment. But there are some people who are at risk of serious illness. They include older people or people with underlying medical problems, such as chronic respiratory disease, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, or cancer. How can we tell whether someone is infected? The infection is commonly diagnosed by a test called reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction, generally known as PCR. This test identifies the virus based on its genetic fingerprint. There's also a blood test that can check for antibodies against the virus, which may show that someone was infected in the past. How is it treated? The treatment for COVID-19 is mainly supportive care. Medicines against the virus are currently under investigation. How do we prevent transmission of the virus? There are a number of effective ways to prevent the spread of the disease. These include covering your mouth and nose when coughing or sneezing with a flexed elbow or tissue, and throwing the tissue in a closed bin immediately after use. Wash hands regularly with soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub, maintaining at least 1 meter distance from people, and the appropriate use of masks and personal protective equipment, especially in health settings. It's important to stay home if you're feeling unwell and to call a hotline or your medical professional. But if you have a fever, cough, or difficulty breathing, seek medical care early and share your travel history or contact with someone unwell with your healthcare provider. In some areas, governments have implemented specific physical and social distancing measures to prevent the spread of the outbreak. It's important to follow their advice. Vaccines to prevent COVID-19 are currently under development, and scientists around the world are working hard to make this happen. That's a quick look at this emerging infectious disease. We're still learning about this virus every day, and what's known may change. So please, check the website below for the most up-to-date information.
You are tuned to the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We now bring you today's commentary, Deepening India-ASEAN Relations Through Think Tanks. It is scripted by Dr. Titli Basu, Strategic Analyst on East and Southeast Asia, and read by Kaushik Rai. Advancing India's Act East policy and the Indo-Pacific Outlook, the 6th roundtable of the ASEAN-India Network of Think Tanks, AINTT, was held last week virtually. This year's discussion was focused on ASEAN-India strengthening partnership in the post-COVID era. AINTT was conceptualized by India in 2009 and aims at bolstering ASEAN-India strategic partnership by addressing the knowledge gap and offering policy recommendations on possible areas of cooperation. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Thailand Don Pramudwinai, and Secretary General of ASEAN Dato Lim Jock Hoi participated in this year's roundtable. Dr. Jaishankar argued that the pandemic has emphasized the deeply competitive international politics on the one hand and the stress on multilateralism on the other. One of the primary questions remain how COVID-19 will shape the world order. India and Southeast Asia have mutuality of interest in globalization. In his remarks, the External Affairs Minister underscored the unprecedented challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic to global economy. The estimated loss may be between 5.8 to 8.8 trillion US dollars, or roughly 6.5 to 9.7% of the global GDP. Such a challenge calls for collective solutions. COVID-19 has accentuated the risks innate in the world economy with regard to concerns over supply chain resilience and diversification. Economic security is a key component of national security, which encompasses trade and technology. In this context, Dr. Jaishankar further stated that the concept of strategic autonomy is important in global supply chains, and there is a need for broader rebalancing and making an equitable world. De-risking health and building a self-reliant India is a priority. The vision of self-reliant India is not an advocacy of isolationism or protectionism, but it urges that a self-reliant India has more to offer to the world. As potent economic forces, both ASEAN and India need to shape the future of Asia in the post-COVID world. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister of Thailand, Don Pramudwinai, in his remarks underscored the value of sharing in ASEAN-India strategic partnership. He suggested 5 key areas of cooperation, including supply chain, regional connectivity, and infrastructure, including through the India-Myanmar-Thailand Trilateral Highway Project, human capital development, regionalism and sub-regional cooperation. For instance, the Ayeyarwady-Chopraya Mekong Economic Cooperation Strategy ACMECS and the Mekong-Ganga Cooperation MGC, maritime, environment and disaster management, and research and development of antiviral medicines and vaccines. While this edition of the AINTT was virtual, the last 5 roundtables were hosted at New Delhi, Vientiane, Hanoi, Kuala Lumpur, and Jakarta. This edition of the AINTT was co-organized by the Ministry of External Affairs of India, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand in collaboration with the Research and Information Systems for Developing Countries RIS, ASEAN Studies Center ASC, and the Chulalongkorn University. Main themes of deliberations included changing landscape of global order and ASEAN-India relations in the post-COVID-19 era, emerging value chains, opportunities for ASEAN and India in the post-COVID-19 era, new normal, and promoting ASEAN-India partnership in the 4th Industrial Revolution 4IR, ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific, AOIP, and Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative IPOI, complementarities and cooperation, and the way forward for ASEAN-India relations. Southeast Asia is the key pillar of India's Act East policy. There is mutuality of interest in securing a free, open, inclusive, and rules-based Indo-Pacific order. There is convergence with respect to common principles such as ASEAN's centrality in India and ASEAN's approach to Indo-Pacific, and both sides are working relentlessly to bolster maritime cooperation, physical and digital connectivity, blue economy, and humanitarian aid. India's strategic engagement with Southeast Asia is based on 3 C's: commerce, connectivity, and culture, and India will continue to invest in ASEAN with the objective of elevating the ASEAN-India strategic partnership to newer heights. That was today's commentary, Deepening India-ASEAN Relations Through Think Tanks. It was scripted by Dr. Titli Basu, strategic analyst on East and Southeast Asia, and read by Kaushik Rai. This broadcast came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
This broadcast came to you from the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.